Welcome to the 2019-2020 Cool Season Forage Virtual Field Day.
Well, it's nearly April, but it feels like midsummer. Hi, my name is Ray Baudry. I'm the County Extension Director and Ag and Natural Resource Agent for UF-IFAS Extension, Gulf County. Today's topic is cool season livestock and wildlife forages, as we've just wrapped up a demo trial statewide. Perennial warm season pasture grasses in Florida become dormant in the fall and winter due to cooler temperatures and shorter days. Some ranchers and wildlife managers choose to supplement cool season forages for grazing, silage, and even cover crop applications. There are a number of ag extension agents across the state that have participated with state specialists and landowners to implement this season's demonstration trial. Please contact your local extension office for more details. We actually have two demo trials here in Gulf County, one on tilled land and one's a no-till application, which is where I am today. Both trials are planted with the same seed set. The finale of this demo trial in Gulf would have been a field day. However, with the threat of COVID-19, it's now a virtual experience. So let's get started.
So let's begin with some information about the established pasture and the implementation of the trial. The location for this overseeded no-till application was on an Argentine Bahia pasture. This pasture is purely used for hay production, so no grazing occurs. Now, full disclaimer, very important to note up front, planting cool season forages on a clean tilled seedbed will result in earlier and more total forage production compared to overseeding an established grass pasture. This trial was done to show that you can utilize a cool season supplement through no-till with really a minimum degree of management. But of course, potential yield and cost inputs are things to be considered by the rancher or the wildlife manager. Now, a couple of points about no-till on established pastures. If overseeding on Bahia, the recommendation is that the sod should be disked to a 30% disturbance. For overseeding on Bermuda, a pasture drill or no-till drill can be used alone. Excess warm season forage should always be removed as hay or by grazing before planting the cool season forage. Now back to our pasture. A soil test revealed lower pH than desired for cool season forage at 5.2. But not far off target for Bahia. In these situations where you're using cool season forages for a supplement, you really want to manage for pH for your perennial pasture crop and not the cool season supplement. However, this may have consequences on germination and overall plant health of some of the varieties, and we'll discuss further in a bit. The nutrient level tested was in the low to medium need range for phosphorus and potassium. No fertilizer amendments were made before or at planting, and planting took place on November 18th. Ideally, October to early November is the best range for planting. Let's talk a little bit about research design. The individual plots were 5 foot by 40 foot. There were 20 sets of livestock forage seed, 4 rye, 4 oat, 2 triticale, 1 wheat, 3 ryegrass, and 6 mixes that included grains, grasses, and clovers, winter pea, vetch, and brassicas. There were 11 sets of wildlife seed mixes as well, with some of the same components. Really, any of the seed could be used for livestock or wildlife grazing. Seed rates varied, but the drill we used is designed to plant research plots and is easy to calibrate for the different seed sizes. This being our first year using this particular drill, we did encounter some issues. So we do have lessons learned to apply for next year's trial implementation. For nutrient, fertilizer was applied after 6 weeks of planting to help boost growth at an application rate of 1.5 pounds per plot of triple 13, roughly the median need for fertilizer according to UF IFAS recommendations. So these photos on the right were taken before the fertilizer application in January. Fertilizer doesn't help much without adequate moisture. Rainfall or irrigation scheduling will make or break a cool season forage crop, especially when overseeding. According to the UF IFAS Extension Florida Automated Weather Network, the weather station in closest vicinity of the pasture recorded an estimated 8.5 inches of rainfall over the 4-month trial period. Also, no weed suppression was used before or during the trial. You'll notice the abundance of toadflax, cudweed, and red sorrel in some of the plots, as depicted in the 3 photos shown here. Now, let's take a look in the field. Let's start with rye. This is the small grain most widely used for winter grazing. Rye is more cold tolerant than oats and generally produces more forage than either oat or wheat. If rye is planted very early in the season, there may be a decreased stand caused by various seedling diseases, so be cautious with planting dates. Normally, rye developed from northern states produces little forage in late fall or early winter, and usually is severely damaged by leaf rust. Therefore, only plant varieties recommended for the southeastern United States. All rye varieties performed very well under the conditions of this trial, especially Florida 401. This variety thrived and is good for early grazing and use in blends. Oat is very palatable, but is susceptible to freeze injury. We didn't have an issue with freezing temperatures this year for the trial. Oat has its advantages as it may be planted and grazed earlier than rye. Legend 567 is one of the new crown rust resistant varieties. Crown rust caused a host of problems some years ago. UF IFAS recommends planting disease resistant varieties when available. However, in grazing systems, crown rust resistance is less critical since rust inoculum is reduced by the grazing animal. Other commercially available varieties of oat are often very productive, although susceptible to crown rust. Early planting of susceptible varieties is not recommended. Few fungicides are labeled for use by the grazing animal and may have hay use limitations as well. RAM LA 99016 is an excellent forage with winter hardiness and good grain production, but it is susceptible to the new strain of crown rust that is prevalent statewide. Susceptible oat plantings may need to be scouted for rust and treatment with legal fungicides, particularly if grown for silage or grain. Oat also performed well under the trial conditions. No particular variety was visually found to have an advantage. Triticale is something that's very interesting. This is a cross between wheat and rye. It is well adapted to the southern United States and peninsula of Florida. Triticale has the forage quality of wheat and the excellent disease resistance of rye, so best of both worlds. However, triticale does not respond well to close grazing and therefore is recommended for hay production or silage if grown alone. If used for grazing, consider blending with ryegrass to promote a longer growing season. It is advisable to use recommended varieties as there are triticale varieties sold in the state that are not adapted to Florida growing conditions and just will not perform well. On to wheat. It is similar to oat in forage, yield, and palatability. Wheat is less susceptible to freeze injury than oat. Wheat should not be planted for grazing before October 15th, and take caution to plant only Hassan fly resistant varieties for grazing. Triticale and wheat perform very well under the trial conditions. You'll notice from the video, no particular variety was visually found to have an advantage. Ryegrass is a valuable winter and spring grazing crop for use on flatwood soils or the heavier sandy loamy soils in northwest Florida. Ryegrass may be seeded alone or with a small grain on a prepared seed bed or overseeded onto a permanent grass pasture, as we've done here in this trial. Seeding ryegrass with a small grain crop lengthens the grazing season. All ryegrass varieties perform well under the trial conditions. A number of livestock and wildlife forage mixes were used in the trial. The mixes were combinations of grasses, grains, and winter legumes. Winter legumes are more dependable on the heavier clay soils of northwestern Florida or on sandy soils underlain by clay layer compared to deep upland sands or sandy flatwoods, of which this trial was conducted. Trial varieties of clover were red, crimson, ball, arrowleaf, and berseem. Trial varieties of brassicas were purple top turnip and radish. Chicory, a broadleaf herb from the sunflower family, was also planted. Rackmaster Choice was the variety. Varieties of vetch were common, hairy vetch, and AU merit. The variety of winter pea used was Whistler. Vetch and winter pea did well in the trial. You'll notice the purple flowers of the vetch. Both grow best on well-drained, fertile, loamy soils. Although they are well adapted, vetch and winter pea are not considered to be highly productive forages in Florida. You'll see by the video footage that, not unlike the prior shown trials, no issues with germination or significant plant development was seen among rye, oat, triticale, and wheat. However, clovers and brassicas did struggle. Both clovers and brassicas can be sensitive to lower pH, soil type, and rainfall. Competition for nutrients with the established pasture grass, as well as the weed outbreak, could have been a factor as well. Collectively, this suggests that too many obstacles existed in order for a successful stand to occur. Certainly, a lime application 6 months before planting to adjust pH would have been beneficial. Thank you for taking the time to view the virtual field day. Again, this trial was done to show that you can utilize a cool season supplement through no-till on an established pasture. But, of course, potential yield and cost inputs are things to be considered by the rancher or wildlife manager. Please view the link below to see the recent cool season forage tour from the UF-IFAS Extension Mariana Beef Cattle Unit with Professor and Forage Breeder Dr. Ann Blunt and the Jackson County Extension Director and Ag Agent Doug Mayo. This will give you a great idea of how cool season forages perform on a tilled seed bed and managed more intensively. Also on the right side of the screen, you'll find links to both UF-IFAS EDIS supporting publications for pasture fertilization and recommended cool season varieties, for which most of the information in this field day originated. Contact your local county extension office for more information on forage management. And thanks again for watching, and stay safe out there.